welcome to the first video of Fun Literature. My name is Kyle and I'll be presenting this episode along with my friends, Carol and Luisa. First of all, we would like to ask you a question or maybe some of them. You probably know or at least heard about The Handmaid's Tale, right? But did you know that before and besides being a TV show, The Handmaid's Tale was a book? Do you know its author? If I had to guess, I would say that not everybody answered yes to the last question. The author is Margaret Atwood, and before being a novelist, she was a wonderful poet. But let's take it baby steps. The book she is most recognized by the majority audience is doubtless The Handmaid's Tale. This book was first published in 1985, and it's a dystopian novel where totalitarian states resembling a tyranny overthrows the United States government. In such a troubled world like this one we live nowadays, it is hard not to relate Margaret Atwood's works with the real world.
I'll send you to the colonies. You'll be cleaning up toxic waste, and then you'll die.
Tonight is a celebration of Gilead and of what we have achieved.
We only wanted to make the world better.
Better.
Better never means better for everyone.
I want to keep on living for her. Remember your scripture. Blessed are the meek. And blessed are those who suffer for the cause of righteousness.
She talks a little bit about the anticipation that sometimes are present in her books in this interview to Broadly.
A lot of your books deal with a sort of near future and they're very speculative. People will often say things like, oh, this happened in Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. Oh, this is just like The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which was written in 1985. And now it's really happening. Did you anticipate?
That creep you out?
It does, yeah. Did you anticipate that?
No, you don't write those books because you hope those things will happen. You write those books because you think they might happen, but you would rather they didn't.
By her way to talk about it, we can notice how aware and concerned about the world she is, and this is really reflected in her works, being much of this reflection about the representation of women in literature and mainly the role of women in society. The feminist revision of myth and female identity is a subject really present in Atwood's work, whether in poems or in novels. Two good readings to see this revisionism are the collections of poetry found in the books Interlunar and Morning in the Burned House, where she uses mythologies in an attempt to make explicit the role assigned to women in this postmodern world. It also focuses on language and images and the power and sexuality of women, which are often taken as taboos until nowadays. The critic Alicia Stryker has a really good point about the construction of femininity and female characters on literature. She says that, at first thought, mythology seems as inhospitable terrains for a women writer. There we find the conquering gods and heroes, the deities of pure thought and spirituality so superior to modern nature. There we find the sexually wicked Venus, Circe, Pandora, Helen, Medea, Eve, and the virtuously passive Iphigenia, Alcestis, Mary, Cinderella. It is thanks to these myths we believe that women must be either angels or monsters. This pose a really heavy burden over women writers, the burden of change this perspective, and Margaret Atwood accepted that burden. She tries to change this perspective through novels like the Penelopiad, where she reimagines the Odyssey, a 19th century before Christ epic poem by the Greek poet Homer, through the eyes of Penelope, not Odysseus, her husband and main character of this Greek myth. Atwood also tries to make us think about it through her poem Ellen of Troy Does Countertop Dancing, where Ellen, who is also a character in Greek mythology and considered the most beautiful woman in the world, now finds herself in a highly active role. The poet takes the female character from an untouchable pedestal of perfection and beauty, relocating her within our society. Ellen takes the word for herself and can retell her own story. This would be something as if the poem was asking the reader, why can Ellen be a countertop dancer? Well, let's listen to the poem.
Helen of Troy does countertop dancing by Margaret Atwood. The world is full of women who'd tell me I should be ashamed of myself if they had the chance. Quit dancing, get some self-respect and a day job. Right, at minimum wage and varicose veins, just standing in one place for 8 hours behind a glass counter, bundled up to the neck instead of naked as a meat sandwich. Selling gloves or something instead of what I do sell. You have to have talent to peddle a thing so nebulous and without material form. Exploit it, they'd say. Yes, any way you cut it, but I have a choice of how, and I'll take the money. I do give value. Like preachers, I sell vision, like perfume ads, desire, or its facsimile. Like jokes or war, it's all in the timing. I sell men back to their worst suspicions, that everything's for sale and piecemeal. They gaze at me and see a chainsaw murder just before it happens, when thigh, ass, inkblot, crevice, tit, and nipple are still connected. Such hatred leaps in them, my beery worshippers, that or a bleary hopeless love. Seeing the rows of heads and upturned eyes, imploring but ready to snap at my ankles, I understand floods and earthquakes, and the urge to step on ants. I keep the beat and dance for them because they can't. The music smells like foxes, crisp as heated metal, searing the nostrils, humid as August, hazy and languorous, as a looted city the day after, when all the rape's been done already, and the killing, and the survivors wander around looking for garbage to eat, and there's only a bleak exhaustion. Speaking of which, it's the smiling that tires me out the most. This and the pretense that I can't hear them. And I can't, because I'm after all a foreigner to them. The speech here is all warty gutturals, obvious as a slab of ham. But I come from the province of the gods, where meanings are lilting and oblique. I don't let on to everyone, but lean close and I'll whisper, my mother was raped by a holy swan. You believe that? You can take me out to dinner. That's what we tell all the husbands. There sure are a lot of dangerous birds around. Not that anyone here but you would understand. The rest of them would like to watch me and feel nothing. Reduce me to components as in a clock factory or abattoir. Crush out the mystery. Wall me up alive in my own body. They'd like to see through me, but nothing is more opaque than absolute transparency. Look, my feet don't hit the marble. Like breath or a balloon, I'm rising. I hover 6 inches in the air in my blazing swan egg of light. You think I'm not a goddess? Try me. This is a torch song. Touch me and you'll burn.
We can start by saying the formal aspects of this poem. Like that, it is a free verse type of poem and that the metric that is closest to the metric of this poem is trochaic tetrameter. We can also say that it has 3 stanzas, being the first one 19 verses long, the second one 45 verses long, and the third one 19 verses long again. But to be honest, those are not the most important aspects of this poem. The images that this poem arises are the most important aspect. This poem shows us a contemporary Helen who works as an exotic dancer and is as beautiful as the mythological one. The first stanza tells us that according to Helen, most women think that her work is shameful and she should have more self-respect. It is like the author denounced the way that society tells women to behave, as if it was better to stand behind a counter and full of varicose veins, probably not happy, instead of investing and discovering your personal and even sexual power. She also cites that those women think that beauty is not a trait that should be used, and that she should work with something else because she's exploited. She even agrees to this statement, but replies, "Yes, in a way, you cut it, but I've a choice. Of how? I'll take the money." This answer tries to show that even knowing that she's being exploited, she has a choice. She's free, even being a prisoner in a male world. And being a prisoner in a male world, she decides at least to take the money, something that in ancient civilization she could not even, just being a passive adornment for the use of her husband. Atwood rescues more directly the Greek myth when portrayed the verse, "My mother was raped by a holy swan," making a direct reference to the circumstances of Helen's conception when Zeus turned himself into a swan and raped Leda, Helen's mother. By the reading we present here, it's possible to notice how emotional and why not liberator this poem is. The image of the last 4 verses are doubtless a cry of freedom. You think I'm not a goddess? Try me. This is a torch song. Touch me and you burn. Freedom from the people who judge her, but mostly freedom from a world where it is natural that men objectify her. These words resonate with the words of the American poet, essayist, and feminist Adrienne Rich, who says that revision, the act of looking back, of seeing with fresh eyes, of entering an old text from a new critical direction, is for women more than a chapter in cultural history. It is an act of survival. That is why the Margaret Atwood's works are so important. These poems spread over time and gradually help to change the literary image of the feminine. Of course, we could go further and further in this analysis, but it's all for today.
We hope we could help you to dive in this marvelous author that is Margaret Atwood. But if you still want to dive deeper in Atwood's work, but also in the top of female representation, we recommend you an article called Feminist Revisionist Mythology and Female Identity in Margaret Atwood's Recent Poetry that helped us a lot to prepare this video. We also would like to say thank you to everybody who listened to us until now. Bye. See ya.